Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker shows, Dutch slaves, rich peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And kind of what we're looking at these days, of course, is a lot of economic turmoil and a lot of the huge stock market correction is being blamed on the Trump's tariffs, and the trade wars. But that's only one component because there's a lot of economic factors that lead into what the stock market is doing right now. Stock market can sometimes be a lagging indicator. There's a great awareness that there's actually a lot of economic fragility and a lot of things are coming to a head. And so that has a lot to do with a huge stock market correction as well. And another part of this, of course, is that there was a couple of huge stock corrections when Biden was president, and nobody was talking about the fact that he was collapsing the stock market and collapsing the economy like they're claiming about Trump right now. So that's just part of the politicization of these events, and of course the media is in on it, and all the liberal pundits are in on it, and all the liberal politicians are in on it, and they're in total glee that we're having this economic calamity, and it's under Trump, and that's also to be expected. But I agree with John Fetterman in the fact that we have half of the country now, and half of our political leaders in the media all cheering on uh, things that are damaging the country. And that's how far this politicization has gone, is taking glee in the failure of your own country just because the guy you like isn't president. But let's be clear, Donald Trump is president right now, but we're still living in Biden's economy, and we're going to see a lot of economic events unfolding as we go forward that are, once again, a lagging indicator of things that were done under Biden. And we have to realize that Biden had a fake economy, and this whole idea that he passed on this great economy to Trump, of course, is a complete lie. And that's how it works. Of course, there was a lot of economic issues when Trump was president the first time, and he passed on some of that. He claims that he passed on a great economy to Biden, but those are half truths. We're dealing with an economy that was severely damaged in 2008 in the crash then, and a lot of the causes of that have just been pushed down the road. Good example of that is commercial real estate. Commercial real estate was severely damaged in 2008, and they've just kept rolling over the loans and refinancing it and pushing the can down the road. And now we're at the point where commercial commercial real estate is a serious problem, and it's probably going to unfold under Trump's presidency. And then we have the Biden so-called employment miracle. And after 4 years, we find out that most of the new employment was either illegals or government hires. The amount of employment that was given out to just normal citizens and normal jobs, in a lot of ways, was flatlining. And so, and we're seeing that, of course, a good example of that is nearly 1 million jobs towards the end of Biden's presidency that it was quickly discovered didn't even exist. And then the massive amount of government hiring under Biden. And so we have a situation now where Trump is not only rolling back the amount of people employed in the federal government, but he's having to compensate for the fact that Biden completely loaded up the government in his 4 years. A good example of that is 87,000 jobs were added to the IRS. And then, of course, now Trump has to deal with not only the IRS, but the bloated bureaucracy that Biden passed on to him. And so we also have the fact that under Biden, we had all these massive stimulus programs and debt relief for the American people, first because of COVID, but then a lot of these programs just kept extending into the last 4 years of Biden, and that includes paying off, having all these programs where basically people were not allowed to default in their mortgages because the government was either giving them special conditions or actually paying their mortgages, and that's going to come to an end. And so that's another thing that is a result of the Biden administration that's going to be passed on to Trump, and we're seeing that already. If there's another housing bubble, Blackstone apparently is unloading tens of thousands of properties now. Um, Everybody sees it coming. And we also have these incredibly high valuations in the stock market. Everybody knows they're horrific and way overvalued. And this happened all through the Biden administration, including record numbers of stock buybacks. And so we have these valuations in the stock market. And that's another reason why we're having a huge correction now. Everybody knows these valuations are too high, and at some point it's got to give. And once again, they sustained it through the Biden administration. It's being passed on to Trump now, and there could be more corrections going forward because these valuations are so out of line with the actual valuations. And then there's arguments that if you use particular metrics, that the United States, even though not so based on technicals, but there's a lot of good reasons to suggest the United States is already in a recession. And granted, the trade wars that Trump has unleashed right now could exacerbate the United States going into a technical recession. And so that's another thing that was pushed down the road for 4 years that Trump's now going to inherit. And another component of that, of course, is massive credit expansion. Massive credit expansion went on under Obama, then went on under Trump, and then went on another 4 years under Biden. A lot of that cheap money. And of course, now in the last year or so of Biden's administration, now going into the Trump administration, there's a credit contraction. A lot more people are having their credit limits lowered. Underwriting for real estate and mortgages and auto loans and everything else is coming back in line. So we're naturally going to see a slowdown in auto purchases and home purchases, and that's something we've seen. And it definitely wound down to a certain degree during the Biden administration, but now going into the Trump administration, we're definitely going to be in a situation where there's going to be a slowdown and continued slowdown in the real estate market. There's a continued slowdown in auto loans, and of course the tariffs will exacerbate that, especially with home building being somewhat restricted because of tariffs on lumber and tariffs on steel and tariffs on aluminum, and then also the auto industry is going to be hit as well. Same thing, supply issues, aluminum, steel, all kinds of car components, and then all of the materials that the United States gets from other countries like China and Canada and Mexico, and then of course automobiles being manufactured in Mexico and shipped up here. This is all going to be interrupted, and it's going to have economic results. And so this whole problem is the fact that, as I pointed out in the beginning, this President Trump is the president, but we're still living in Biden's economy, and we're going to have to pay for it. And a lot of this was planned. And right now, inflation is down to 2.8%, which is a good thing. But we could see inflation tick up as a result of tariffs. And part of the inflation from tariffs will unfold slowly, and other parts of inflation caused by tariffs will show immediately. So it's going to be a mixed bag. But this is how it is, and this is how administrations work. And they always blame the administration before them for their failures, and then they take credit for all these successes. And like everything I've just pointed out, we've got a mixed bag right now. And of course, I have my own personal theory that they've been artificially propping up and stimulating the economy, which is an absolute true fact. And that if they do crash the economy. They're going to do it under Trump, and they're going to blame him. So he's a perfect scapegoat, and they can blame all these gyrations with the reduction in the federal workforce and the disruption of contracts and the disruption of trade, and say it's all Trump. But there's a lot of things that are baked in the cake right now, and all these things that Trump is doing aren't alone enough to crash the economy. Everything's already in place to crash the economy, and we're getting a lot of warnings. Of course, a lot of the big players over the last 4 years have already pulled out of the market. We've seen a record number of CEOs, including Jamie Dimon, and the big banks, and Warren Buffett, and all these people selling their stocks for the first time ever, and pulling a lot of cash out of the market. And so they see something coming. So anyway, that's my theory. So to go back to the big picture, President Trump is the president right now. We're still living under Trump's economy. A lot of things that were papered over during the last 4 years are going to surface, and we're seeing part of that now. And then we also have the big players have already pulled out because they know something's coming. They'll still take advantage of the volatility in the market, but for the most part, they're sitting on a lot of cash on the sidelines, and they'll wait for a big crash, and then there'll be a big fire sale, and they'll buy a lot of assets and stocks on the cheap, like they always do. And then the bottom line, like I suggest, is that they've been holding this economy together, very vulnerable, despite what all these statist economists say and politicians say. The economy is on unsure footing, and it would be like them to calculate, and then basically something that's inevitable, that was already baked in the cake, is going to happen under Trump, and then they can go, see, I told you so. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.